Welcome to Alberto's Universe. Mind Chronicles 1. Hemi-Sync. In Ascension Chronicles Part 6, I describe the path to enlightenment. I highlighted the fact that rationality is lower in frequency to love and joy. This means that a higher consciousness person primarily processes life through their heart and not through their mind. In a nutshell, a high consciousness person thinks through their heart. Still, the path out of slavery towards freedom is full of mind work. This is because we must clear our mind from all the programs we have been exposed to. We also need to ready our mind to being open to all that God designed us to be. Through Mind Chronicles, I will discuss various subjects dealing with our mind's health and development. This is different than the subjects addressed through Ascension Chronicles. For this part 1, I will begin with a series of exercises designed to increase our mental abilities. Here, I must remind us that the most important exercise to do is meditation. Meditate as often as possible. In Ascension Chronicles Part 9, I attempted to demystify meditation. Go back and listen to Part 9 to remind yourself of the importance of meditation. Getting back to this part of Mind Chronicles, there is a technique that the CIA developed to improve telepathic abilities. Yes, I know. The CIA is the modern version of the Nazi groups that developed techniques to control the human mind. Programs like MK Ultra have been used to make humans do very unnatural things. MK Ultra, or the mind control arm of the control system, has created an army of disposable slaves. Slaves who were selected at birth and then programmed to be anything from assassins to sexual honeypots, all on command. All that it takes is a single phone call to the programmed individual. A verbal command is then delivered. Instantly, the programmed person receiving the message leaves his natural person behind and takes on an alter ego, an alter person, who is ready to act whatever he or she is instructed. It turns out that the movie Manchurian Candidate was describing reality after all. And digging deeper, the other arm of the control system is MK Naomi. This is the population control program dedicated to ensuring that population growth slows down as much as possible. Everything from shortening life expectancy, think poisoning our food and vaccinating everyone, to reducing birth rates, to war and genocide, are all part of MK Naomi. Since many of their programs have been driven by off-planet entities, we're talking about very advanced insights. Some, like MK Ultra, must be understood to prevent their deployment. Still, there are portions that could be very valuable, portions of this knowledge. Telepathy and remote viewing methods, for example, are among these techniques that can enhance all human beings. Here, I must clarify that I do not agree with any technique, knowledge, or practice used to create pain, harm, or slavery of any living species. I therefore do not consent to what the control system and the planet managers do to all of us. We are free, we are sovereign, and they should respect us. At this time, I know that we are at war with them. I therefore feel the need to use any of their knowledge to improve our abilities in this fight. For this reason, I will share a series of audio recordings which I created based on their knowledge base to improve telepathic skills. More specifically, think of these recordings as a path to being able to do the famous Jedi mind trick. Remember the very first Star Wars movie, Episode 4, where Obi-Wan uses the Jedi mind trick over the stormtroopers who are looking for R2-D2 and C-3PO. He inserts the thought into the stormtroopers' minds that his were not the droids they were looking for. Likewise, these recordings will help you develop the ability to project a series of thoughts onto others. In other words, this is a way to send telepathic messages to people who are not telepathic themselves. Like with all things, a person could use these abilities for good or for bad. In my case, they have helped me communicate much better with animals. While the skills developed from listening to these recordings do not result in complete telepathic power, they nonetheless serve to improve telepathic communication. Think of them as a very important first step. You see, telepathy is as much emotional as it is intellectual. The recordings will improve the intellectual side of our telepathic communication. Meanwhile, you should also continue working on your ability to tune into the universal language of emotions. Again, meditation is the key there. For my telepathic skills, I often rely more on my emotional side. This is how I sense that someone is lying, for example. When a person lies, I receive the words they speak at the same time that I sense their intention. The words are processed through my brain. Their intention is processed through my heart, through my emotions. When someone lies, the two messages do not match. That is how I know they are lying to me. Honest and transparent people speak in ways that match their intentions. In a different scenario, I'm also able to sense a person's actions before they start acting on them. I sense what they are about to do before they do it. Since their thoughts happen before they act on them, I am able to read their mind before they start to act. These recordings have been very valuable to me, which is why I want to share them with you. Through these Mind Chronicles, I will publish one of these recordings per month. This is so that you may be able to have a whole month to practice each section before moving to the next one. Here, I have to remark that no recording is better or superior to the rest. While I assign numbers to each recording, it is important to understand that they are all equally relevant. Each must be practiced periodically. See these recordings as muscle exercises that complement each other. These recordings are designed to develop the connection between the two hemispheres of your brain. These are often described as Hemi-Sync sounds. Most people never develop neural paths between their two brain hemispheres. This really limits their ability to be fully capable. By connecting the two hemispheres, by synchronizing them, we're able to convert our brain into a more effective projection antenna. Reptilians and some insectoids stare directly at the person they are trying to interact with because they're using their two hemispheres in the same way. It is important for me to disclose at these technical aspects because I want to ensure that you know that we are only using processes that are both natural and safe for people. To build neural paths, we need to use tones at different frequencies. These frequencies are similar to the operating rhythm of our brain during different stages of functioning. On a daily basis, the operating rhythm of the brain can go down as we fall asleep, and then go higher as we are fully awake. For the purpose of developing these natural paths, I'm taking advantage of a process natural to the brain known as intermodulation. This is what happens when the brain processes two sounds at different frequencies. For example, it is said that healthy humans can only hear sounds within the range of 20 hertz and 20 kilohertz. That is between 20 cycles per second and 20,000 cycles per second. Again, this is a 10 octaves range of sound waves. This limited range suggests that a human cannot hear a thing beyond 20 kilohertz. How then is it that humans discern differences in sound well above the upper limit? Intermodulation is the answer. You see, a violin plays most of its sounds within a limited bandwidth between 200 hertz, 200 cycles, and about 3,000 hertz, 3,000 cycles. But there are many different resonances coming from the instrument's body and strings that have harmonic structure well beyond the violin's fundamental range, extending well past the limit of human hearing. Well, while humans cannot hear a single isolated tone outside of the described range, they can detect otherwise inaudible tones when these are part of a set of audible sounds. Let us say that the harmonic structure from a violin includes tones at 30 kilohertz and 37 kilohertz, which are both outside of our fundamental range. While neither of the sounds is audible, a human could easily detect the difference between the two. A normal human will detect the intermodulation happening at the difference between the 30,000 and 37,000, which is 7,000 hertz. This is strongly supported by many scientific studies. So, if a listener compares the sound of the above-mentioned violin with a second one that does not create those out-of-band tones, the listener will be able to discern that both violins sound different, despite the difference happening outside of the audible range for a human. Following this principle, I use two sound signals, two tones, at different frequencies in order to have the brain sense the difference between them. Because the goal is to create new paths between the two hemispheres of the brain, one hemisphere must receive only one tone, while the other hemisphere receives exclusively the second tone. Here, it is paramount that each hemisphere is only exposed to one of the two tones. It is very important that the left ear only hears one tone, while the right ear only hears the other tone. This explains why we cannot use most traditional speakers. Using car, cell phone, home, or home theater speakers to play the two tones will result in each ear receiving both tones through the air. Thus, the only alternative is to use headphones or inner ear headphones. In the recording, one tone is played through the right channel, and this tone is heard by the right ear only. Likewise, the left channel will have the second tone, which is only heard by the left ear. With each hemisphere receiving different tones simultaneously, the brain will synchronize its two sides and will do so at the frequency of the difference between the two tones. If I record 100 Hertz for the right channel and 101 Hertz for the left channel, the neural paths between the two hemispheres will be created at a frequency of 1 Hertz, which is the difference between the two. This frequency would otherwise be inaudible. Again, our lower limit is supposed to be 20 Hertz. But through this exercise, it can be created. Since my intention is to develop neural links at many different frequencies, the recordings play a multitude of tone pairs. Each recording plays a selection of tones that go up and down in frequency, thus creating paths at various frequencies per session. Each target frequency lasts 15 seconds before the sound changes to the next frequency. Because I want to create symmetry between the two hemispheres, the same set of tones played on the right side are later played through the left side. In other words, the exercise is reversed halfway through the recording. Again, this is to create symmetry. So it is irrelevant whether you have the right headphone on the right ear or not. Both ears will be exposed to the same set of tones through the recording. The various recordings will then exercise the brain at half cycle increments from 0.5 half cycle to over 50 Hertz, 50 cycles. More specifically, the first recording goes from 0.5 all the way to 21 Hertz in increments of half cycles. The carrier frequencies, in other words, the frequencies used to derive the difference, cover a range between 50 Hertz and 5 kilohertz through the various recordings. In the case of the first recording, the carrier frequencies are between 54 Hertz and 484.5 Hertz. This means that the tone begin very low in frequency, build towards the mid bands, and end up back at the low frequencies. As I mentioned before, this means that many headphones will appear to change in loudness as frequency changes. Please adjust the volume control through the recording to ensure that sound remains at a pleasant level. A few of the recordings exercise the same derived frequency, the frequency of the new neural path, but change carrier frequencies. I did this because the brain's ability to calculate intermodulation changes where the carrier frequencies are low, close, or far from derived frequencies. I know this is a mouthful. Here again, to eliminate any bias, I use different carrier frequencies. By the way, the only reason why I am going in depth on the technical aspects of the recordings is because some listeners may want to know and understand what they are hearing. I am one of those. As a result, I wish to be transparent. Each recording lasts about half an hour and can be heard while resting, doing dishes, or driving, for example. For some people, the creation of new neural paths may result in slight headaches. If so, stop the exercise and take a break. Over time, it becomes easier. Also, note the recording's volume. Never play sound at too high of level. Periodic exposure to loud sounds is known to diminish hearing abilities. Note that the level of each recording may change as the tones move higher in frequency. This is not due to the recording itself, but to the speakers inside the headphones. Most of these speakers play mid-range sounds louder than bass sounds, thus creating the perception that the recording changed in loudness. This means that you may need to increase the volume level when playing low frequency tones and decrease it for high frequency tones. The recordings that I will include in this section are numbered level 1, 6, 11, 16, 21, and 26. During my experimentation, I created 30 different recordings. Of these, the ones I selected for you happen to be every 5 numbers. The rest of such experiments were not as effective as these are. Listen as periodically as possible. Each time we listen, new pathways will be created between the two hemispheres. But in order to transmit complex thoughts and images, billions of pathways will be required. This is the reason behind the need to listen as often as we can. Remember, these are many more than muscle exercises. Then, once the abilities start materializing, you may begin transmitting without realizing it. Don't worry though. Over time, you will be able to learn both how to select who you are sending messages to and the times when you do not transmit at all. It all just takes practice. Finally, make sure that you give yourself permission to become telepathic. In other words, manifest your telepathic abilities by starting in a place of love. Love yourself. And visualizing yourself as a telepathic person. Then, just let it go. And experience no worry or preoccupation about it. Just enjoy. Thank you.